Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the podcast, Breaking the Silence. My name is Allen Kharlip. I am the Clinical Supervisor of Addiction Rehab Toronto, and this is Breaking the Silence, a podcast where we talk about recovery, we talk about wellness, we talk about fighting the good fight, and we talk about people's and lives' experiences. Today, I'm very, very fortunate to have Brett Johnson, the owner of One Life Recovery Society, here with us. Brett, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Alan. Really happy to be a part of this, man. I like the topic. It's breaking the silence. There's so much stigma out there, and I think a lot of addicts die alone and die in silence, and a lot of families aren't talking about this thing. And it's cool to show people that recovery is possible. That that we don't have to have that same fate, right? And change the message that this stuff's possible, right?
Absolutely, change the narrative. Right? Because a lot of times, a lot of people's experiences start to become their narrative, right? And I think it's such an important piece to be able to show people that doesn't have to be, your life moving forward, right? And I know that this is such a personal sort of topic for you. Recovery in itself is so important, so personal to you, how it hits home. Why is recovery and why is carrying this message, breaking the silence, why are these things so important to you in your own experience and sort of what came about to you in your personal life before really starting to show a message of hope and change?
Oh man, that's we could probably talk for 2 hours about that topic.
Yeah.
Kind of the short version of it is I lived in addiction my entire life. I was raised in a household where addiction was really prevalent. My dad was a dope dealer. Lots of chaos and fighting going on within the home, lots of abuse. Fell into that trap myself, grew up in it. Ended up in jail, at a very young age. I was homeless by the age of 19. And then it's like I was forced to go to a recovery program out of jail and introduced to a new way of life, right? And I had no clue. I thought that was always going to be the way. It's important to me because change is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't have to live the same fate that we were introduced to. I was talking about it with a group of guys this morning in the group in our house, actually. One of the topics of the reading was our own limitations that we set for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's these ideas that I had that I wasn't worth it. I wasn't going to be anything. I couldn't achieve any success in my life. I was dumb. I was stupid. I was, sort of the bottom of the barrel of society, that I was never going to amount to anything. All of these self-imposed beliefs that I had adopted, recovery showed me a way to let go of those, to empower me to then change the narrative, as you said, and get to that point of I can achieve something. I am worth it. I am enough. I can be a good father. I can be a good partner. I can be a good friend, a good son, and participate in my family and sit down at the dinner table instead of treating life like it's a drive-through.
Yeah. It's so important. It's such a powerful sort of way of communicating with your, just the things that you're saying and, just being able to sort of identify with it. What do you think that narrative comes for people? I know there's a lot of different variables, but you being in the field, you working with other people, you talking about your own personal experience and your sharing abilities. Where do you think that sort of narrative comes for people nowadays? Where do you find that? When you hear people's stories and people's experiences?
Well, it comes from a lot of different places, right? People have been through certain traumas in their life. It could be the education system they went through, teachers telling them, they were doing it wrong or they weren't enough or things like that. Maybe parents were having that message, why are you like this?
Yeah.
Kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It could be stuff like that. I think, social media has a massive impact on that stuff today. I think people are constantly comparing themselves to others.
Yeah.
In a negative way, right? Where it's like, oh, that person has, this life that I like, why don't I have that? And
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So I think that social media piece has a massive impact on people's belief about themselves these days. But it comes from a multitude of different areas, and like, I think, trauma is obviously like is hugely prevalent in the addiction world.
Hmm.
And like pain is pain, right? So I think every addict has gone through some difficulty in their life. What matters in recovery is like how we deal with that today. And
Right.
what is the messaging I'm telling myself?
Right.
The cool line in the topic we were talking about today is that I have the freedom to discard those old beliefs and change the narrative.
Right.
I didn't even know that was possible before recovery.
Right.
I thought whatever I thought was the absolute truth.
Mm.
And being told that I can, in my mind, change how I act and how I behave and how I think, which will ultimately change the trajectory of my life,
Hmm.
was an astronomical idea that is so simple that I just didn't even know existed.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit on a couple topics and a couple points there that I feel, are things that, we can sort of bring up. One of them being social media, right? And I talk about this a lot on podcasts, and even when I do the work, with individuals and I see people come through here, like that toxic comparison is such a dangerous sort of slope that people go down, especially because nowadays it's such a competitive world. We're so exposed to seeing what people's lives look like on the surface of things, and then there's this this idea or this precedent that other people have this amazing way that they're living, and I really want to follow suit in that, right? And I think one of the big things that I've seen, and I don't know if you can attest to this, is people being stuck in that cycle of they feel like they failed, or they feel like they've let themselves down, let other family members down, friends down, and that toxic comparison can take them down such a dangerous path, because again, people are trying to insert their own experience into something that's beyond their control, right? So in your sort of line of work, where we're going to get to that, but do you see that that's a very common element in people's struggles these days?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think like it's accessed at their fingertips, and everybody on social media is posting their highlight reel of how good their life is, and it's like you're comparing your emotional well-being to one single second of a person's life, and I think sort of the concept of social media is to attract as many likes and all this stuff as you possibly can. That toxic comparison is absolutely a limitation that people set on themselves. Extremely prevalent in today's society. I myself like made the decision to delete all my personal social media a little over a year ago, and
Mm.
some of the I consider myself a pretty strong-minded individual, and I found myself doing it too, and not to the point where it was like extremely detrimental to my well-being, but
Hmm.
enough that I was like, I don't really need this in my life anymore. And the benefits from removing myself from it have been huge. It's
Yeah.
like I have more inner peace than I've had in a really long time.
Hmm.
I'm not wasting time scrolling through reels or anything like that, and I'm like, my focus is directed to the betterment of self and the betterment of our organization, and how I can be a better father, and how I can participate more in my romantic relationship, and instead of just wasting time like running around. I think like it was designed to connect us, but it's kind of doing the opposite.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I don't want to go too much into it anymore, but I just feel like it's such an important piece to talk about, because you definitely see that in your line of work, where it's like you get off the substances and you get off the whatever the addiction is, and now my new addiction becomes social media and what I look like and going to the gym and all of these things, which in balance it is good. But again, you find that, the compulsivity and the pattern of how excessive it becomes start to become a detrimental thing. Right. And I think you hit on a couple of things there where you said, being a better partner, having a better relationship with my friends and family, being a present father, right, is a big piece, right? So I just feel like, being able to sort of eliminate those distractions is such a empowering circumstance, right? And even in your own life to be able to do that, like, how do you find when you work with other people, how do you find that their compulsivity sort of becomes so detrimental to them, whether it's drugs or alcohol or substances? Like, where do you find that people sort of really get stuck in their ways with things?
Well, I think there's a lot of areas, like, I mean, addicts in their nature are compulsive individuals, right? And, we struggle to deal with impulse control and want to compulsively seek pleasure. So any way that an individual can do that, right? It's through gambling, through sex, through their cell phone, through video games, through food, all of those ways I see people act compulsively towards it. I think as long as a person is, sort of willing to take some feedback on that and has a community of people around them that they're bouncing ideas off of, and keeping their decision making up for review, we're going to falter along the path of recovery. Mm-hmm. Every person will. I think that's sort of the key to success, though, is to be willing to work on it continuously. But I know for me in my life, like, when I put down the drugs and alcohol, it was like whack-a-mole with all these other things. It's like I start overeating a little bit, and so push that down, and then it's like I start seeking out sex and push that down, and and whatever it might be, right? Hitting up the casino, maybe a little bit too much sports betting or whatever it is, right? And it's like, for me though, as a drug addict, it's like, as long as I don't pick up, all that other stuff is negotiable. I need to be careful that I'm not doing any of those things to my detriment, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You mentioned a couple of good things there, right? I think the biggest thing that you sort of said was, not allowing these things to become a detriment to you or for you. But in your own personal experience, what do you think are some things that you can do to sort of combat that compulsivity? Like, taking substance out of the way, some of these other things that you mentioned, right? Sex, gambling, seeking out relationships. Like, we talk a lot about recovery in the essence of being able to have important, healthy habits. What would be some of those things that you would suggest to other people?
Oh man, there's so many tools to combat the detrimental compulsive behavior that we're taught in recovery, that I've been taught. Thankfully, I'm so blessed to have had the people in my life that I have, because I always say, I didn't do this by myself. I got taught. Somebody came before me and told me, some of these tools to utilize. And some of them are I can pick up a book and I can read. Mm-hmm. I could enroll in a class in school. Mm-hmm. I can chase that job that I've always dreamed of having. Mm-hmm. I can open up and get vulnerable with my friends and my family and talk about the stuff that's going on inside of me. Mm-hmm. And start to live authentically. I can go for a run. Mm-hmm. I can go to the gym. Mm-hmm. I can, journal. I can write a gratitude list about my life. I can cook myself a healthy meal. Mm-hmm. I go spend time with my son and grab a fishing rod and go throw a rod in the water. Mm-hmm. Literally anything else other than the problematic behavior.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think, in your experience, gets people out of what do you think brings them or draws them back to that, right? Because these are all formidable options that people have. Right. You today yourself being able to practice that and advocate that, you see the benefit in it. But to tell somebody, here are some things that you can do, it's a little bit more difficult because there's so like in the cycle of that addiction? Like,
Right.
what do you think gets them out of that? What do you think is the biggest barrier there?
I mean, I think like trying it for the first time, you know, and like I don't fully know like how, you know, there's lots of different ways to attempt to influence a person, right?
Mhm.
But I think until an individual starts to see the evidence, either in their own life or like to look around and say, well, it's working for that guy,
Right.
maybe it could work for me too. You know, sort of that idea that like maybe it could start to work for me. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's any real secret other than consistent effort.
Right. Right. You talked a lot earlier about seeking input and
Yeah.
feedback and being able to tell somebody some truth about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience being around recovery for such a long period of time, how have you found that to be so beneficial? Like when you talk about feedback and input, you're talking about other people saying it to other people, like other people that are in the cycle, or other people trying to be in recovery or in recovery saying that to each other. Like, why do you find that that is such an effective and powerful technique for people?
I mean, it's kind of a universal truth that's been around since the beginning of time. Like if we look at anybody who's been successful in their lives, like you know, you look at people who come up and take a Grammy award for their music. What do? The first time they get up on stage? They start thanking and like making a list of all the people who have helped them to get there.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like I think as addicts, we have developed this false self-reliance on
Yeah.
ourselves, you know, and it's like
Absolutely.
I need people in my life. Any idea that I have or goal that I want to accomplish, like bring people in and get some other ideas because my own thinking was diseased.
Mm.
It was not right. It was in this constant pursuit of pleasure,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and it's like I need to slow down. I need to take a step back. I need to get other ideas from other people because my thinking, my best thinking, got me into jail, got me homeless, got me into rehab, got me into toxic relationships, you
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
that's got me into debt, like
Yeah. Yeah.
all of that
Absolutely.
type of stuff. So like when I started to like run ideas by other people and get input, I started to get my thinking became more clear. And now it's like aligned, right? It's like my decision making has now aligned with you know what I call like spiritual principles, things like integrity and honesty and open-mindedness. And it's like I can get a clear perspective on this and I'm not acting out of impulse and compulsion anymore.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is allowing other people that are going through that same struggle or going through that same level of recovery, or in it with connection. You're saying that being able to get feedback and receive feedback from them is such a powerful tool. What do you think the difference between getting input from a guy that's just doing this with you and maybe seeing a therapist? Like, what do you think that the difference between the two is? Because, right, a therapist is a professional, a counselor is a professional. So sometimes when you get those suggestions from them, there's some maybe weight or merit to it. Whereas, like, people can be skeptical about, I'm not too sure if I should be getting input or feedback from somebody that, maybe doesn't really necessarily have their own life together. So what do you see in your experience as the difference between the two, and why is that such a powerful message that you keep carrying with that connection and that input that you're getting from another like-minded individual?
Well, I think it's important, right, to like, there's a lot of things to discuss there. I think like when I came into recovery, I had this massive distrust towards anybody in my life.
Mhm.
You know, and so like I had to like that was one of those limitations that prevented me from moving forward. You know, another person going through the struggle, so that like whole peer-to-peer support thing is
Mhm.
like I'm on my own, not very strong to get through my addiction. But like me and you together,
Yeah,
we got a better chance.
for sure.
You know, it's like this 500-pound weight. I can't lift that by myself. Me and you, maybe we need another guy. But
Mhm.
like if we get, you know, a third guy together, maybe we could do it. And it's like where there's strength in numbers and there's strength in community and there's strength in connection. And I think like, going back to some of the early research around therapeutic communities, and I love what you guys are doing in Toronto Sober Living Network. Just want to throw that in there. Not trying to blow your guys' head up too much, but it's such a cool thing because when we build these communities out, we become stronger together. And so like a therapist is great. A therapist can help me with some of my trauma and my mental health, and like I need both. If I'm struggling emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like it's good to go to a therapist. I'm not saying, Joey that is 30 days clean is going to be able to fucking help, excuse my language, but like help me through my trauma. It's not gonna, I need both, right? Like, however, I really need that connection piece. I need to walk this path with other people. I need to look for the similarities and not the differences.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. You talk about community and you talk about, your own community and, the things that you've done there. I want to talk a little bit about One Life Recovery because, I see the work that you do and, how inspirational it is to, have somebody that comes in from, maybe not necessarily ground zero, but maybe, hopeless. And you build them sort of back into that place. Why did you start One Life Recovery in the first place? And how is that sort of transcended into the person, that you are today with that vision and that value system and that, integrity and principles that you talk about?
Man, it's just like it was birthed out of pain and struggle. Like when I went through these recovery places, like I was in the government system and like I went through some of these like gnarly recovery houses out in Surrey, and like there was rats running through there and people were like smashing up their drugs in the house, and like the owner would come by and drop off a box of ready to go noodles once a week, and like, sorry about that, someone just tried to walk in, but like the owner would come and drop off a box of noodles once a week for us, and like it was just this like gnarly cycle of like a terrible place, and I like had this vision. I was like, what if we, had a safe place to go, and I knew some other people that were doing this right in like the New West area, that were doing it right, that were like building these communities out, and I watched them and I looked at them and I admired that scenario, and I was like, man, we need one of those in Nanaimo too. And and I was like, I just went to work, man, and I had this other mentor of mine, and again, it's so important of the people that I've had in my life that told me I could do it, and I had this dream, but I also, came from the street and like came from a pretty traumatic place, so I didn't have much belief in myself, and it was the other people that built me up to tell me that yes, you can do this and it is possible and don't let go of it. And one day it happened and we opened up, and it's like it started out really small, like I started out just getting some like professional education and some coaching, and there was some guys that I worked with, and it was like it didn't go that well at first, and it was like and I learned and I grew and things started to change, right? But it really and now it's beautiful, man. Like we're pretty relatively small still. We got 20 beds here in Nanaimo. It's all men. But some beautiful things happen here, man. Guys are getting vulnerable. They're starting to like see themselves for who they can be, not from who they were. They get lives and they get families and they get relationships and they start to participate again. And it's so empowering and beautiful to watch. And so like when it's happening around everybody and even the new guys coming in and they see this happening with the senior guys that are maybe going on weekend trips to visit their families, and then they're posting pictures in the group chat about, I got to spend time with my daughter and I haven't seen her in 10 years. Yeah, like that's, man, you can't put a price on that stuff. So it means everything to me, and that like that this whole topic about breaking the silence, this is why I'm doing it. Because we don't have to have that fate of dying alone on the street. And like, it's not just street level addicts. Like people, are dying alone in penthouses in frickin' Toronto.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to die alone. And like, one more real quick thing. I know I'm kind of long winded here, but this stuff matters.
Yeah.
My father died from this disease, right, in 2019. And like, I was clean and I got to sit by his bedside and I got to talk to him while he was dying. And, like, this was a man that was stuck in addiction his entire life. I had a lot of trauma from this guy, but I got to see him beyond his addiction. And he got real and he got vulnerable in that last week of his life. And it proved to me that, like, it's not the amount of moments that matter, but it's like the severity of the moment that matters. Like, he lived more in that week's time than the previous 59 years of his life, and he got real and he got vulnerable and like, he got to tell me things that I was waiting my whole life to hear in that last week, but like, why can't we do that today?
Yeah.
Why can't we start living with purpose today? And start telling the people that matter to us today, like, I love you, man, Allen. I love you, man. And like, we've walked through some difficult things together.
We have.
Like, you matter to me in my life. And like, it'll never change, and like, I don't want to throw that away.
No, never.
I'm not willing to throw away this beautiful life that I get to live.
Yeah. You talk, I mean, wow. A lot of vulnerability there. And a lot of vulnerability there. Like, you mentioned a lot of things, and you talk about, I think the biggest thing that you got out of there was, why does it have to take these like abnormal fleeting circumstances to really see somebody's truth, right? And I think today we talked a lot about, like, people just maybe showing, that or trying to prove that they're better than what they really are on an inside thing, and look at me and look how good I look externally. But you're right, like, the real healing and recovery comes from the power of vulnerability, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that for you, working in this field, working with so many of these guys, getting them to a place where they're hopeless and, giving them some inspiration, allowing them to really see what recovery is like. If they just stay and sit for a while and just allow it to work for them in their life, you start to see the importance, the essence, how organic and cathartic power, the vulnerability can be, right? And, I think that that's such a huge topic, and we can get into, the power of vulnerability, in another podcast. We can do a completely separate episode on that.
Good. Set it up, man.
Let's go. Man, for sure. And, one last thing I want to ask you. I do see One Life Recovery in a lot of community events. I know you just had a Sober Fest in Victoria, and probably a bunch of things on the island. Why is it so important for you, Brett Johnson, the founder of One Life Recovery, to be out there and doing these community events with these guys and, showing love and showing support to recovery? And why is that such an important, special piece for you?
Because, like, we have to do it, man. We have to break the silence. Like, I want to be a part of, and I was told when I first got into recovery, like, get in the middle. Those little, like, old crusty metal merry-go-rounds when we were a kid.
Yeah.
Like, if you're hanging on the edge of that thing, you're falling off and you're getting tossed and you're damned. You get in the hub of that and you hold on like you're pretty safe. And, I can't fall off the edge if I'm in the middle. And we need to share the message. We need to change the narrative that, like, we do recover and we are sons and we're daughters and we're brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers, that, like, we matter. Yeah. Our life matters. And, like, just because I'm an addict doesn't mean I'm, like, on the low end of the spectrum of society. Mm-hmm. Like, we change. Mm-hmm. Like, people, I know you and I've known you for your entire recovery, and, like, people were ready to write you off. Mm-hmm. To throw you away, to be like, you don't matter anymore. But, like, through people saying, yes, you do, you can achieve this, you're now the director of an addiction rehab center, and you're helping hundreds of people, and you're a father, and you get to be a son, and you get to show up for your family. And it's like recovery did that.
Yeah. And it took time, right? And I think, nowadays it's just, people just want, we're just so used to being overstimulated by all of these things that we talked about today, and how people just want everything right away. But, I always try to tell people, and I know you do this too, and I think I learned this from you, is you need to appreciate the journey, because the destination is just there. You don't appreciate all of the things to get there, right? Like for you with One Life Recovery, you wouldn't appreciate the journey that it took to get there. And it wouldn't mean as much to you if you just all of a sudden, started your journey, and all of a sudden you were, helping hundreds and hundreds of guys, and feel like it's the journey that gets there, and the learning experience that you do to get there, right? So I think that, being able to practice patience, tolerance, and just believing in yourself is so huge, right? But it takes practice, just like anything else in life, right?
Absolutely, man. And yeah, it's 100% true. Like, it does take practice.
If with some of our viewers that are listening today, if you can, have some final words or a message that you would want to say to them that are hearing this podcast, what would that message be?
I know it might sound kind of corny, but anybody listening, like, you can achieve anything you set out to do. You are worth it, and you are enough, so don't give up.
We're here with Brett Johnson, owner, founder of One Life Recovery, recovery advocate, mental health advocate, helping people change their lives. Beautiful, amazing stuff with vulnerability, with action, with change, with belief. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it. I love you. We're going to do this again for sure. You're listening to Breaking the Silence. I am your host, Allen Kharlip. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you next week. Beautiful. Thank you, buddy.